Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, we start working on some custom seats. The Patrol here, we've pretty much come along just working on rust, painting in bits and pieces and all sorts. I think it's time we start trying to make this a little prettier. So these are the original seats. They've been in storage for, oh geez, about a year now, so they're looking worse for wear. Had stuff piled on top, so they're looking pretty nasty. There's indentation where things have been sitting. Once I get them stripped down, the heat gun should return that foam back to normal shape. Even just being sit in the sun for a day or two, that should return to shape. But for now, the covers and original covers are still in pretty decent condition, dirty as hell, but they're in good enough condition to get a good pattern from. So it's a good platform to work from. Now, as I pulled the old seat covers off the seats, I realized that the passenger side back cover is missing. That's all right, we'll just have to make a new one, replace it. No worries there. So these are gonna have a flannelette insert. It's kind of like a tartan style flannel look that I'm going for, and that's going to be mixed in combination with this marine grade vinyl or leather look synthetic material. So this is the Capri marine vinyl. So if you want to know what this vinyl actually is, this is the Capri ink pebble. So if you want to look into it further, you can get in contact with Nolan's. They're an Australian-based textile upholstery supplier. I think they do deal with the public. So if you're after something, you can hit them up. So this vinyl can be, you can get it in a smoother grain, whereas this one you can see it's a bit of a skin type texture. They call that a pebble grain. I like the look because it reminds me of leather a bit more than the standard grain. It also gives you a less shiny look. So it's a more satin or matte finish, which is my preference. Some people like the shiny look. I'm not too big on it. So this video here is not going to be a complete tutorial on how to do the seats, but along the way I'll show you a few tips and whatnot that you can do along the way, just at home with basic equipment. For example, this driver's seat here, the factory GQ Y60 seat, the lumbar support here is really not up to the task. So I can show you a quick modification that you can do by yourself at home for about $5 that will help fix the lumbar support there. And as I'm stripping down and doing work, I'm going to put on a time lapse. Now, I'll do my best to pick music that's a little bit more appropriate, a little bit more entertaining for you guys. I've heard and seen your comments, and I'm going to try to keep that volume down for you, make it less annoying for you guys. So, I see your comments, and I'm learning, and I hope you enjoy. So I've got the driver's seat stripped down. There is a bit of rust. The foams are completely locked with water, so we're going to have to let them drain for a day or two. But in the meanwhile, I can start working on the seat covers. If we look at the frames here, because they were living in a very damp shed for so long, they're starting to rust. So that's something we're going to address. We're going to wire brush it and just paint it, and that would be good to go. So the covers, they're wet themselves, but we'll be able to still work with that. It's not ideal having a wet because you don't want to really damage the new materials you're working with. But I don't really feel like waiting a few days for them to dry. Alright, so this is the driver's seat. Now it's stripped down. The foam is a little bit worse for wear, so I'm going to patch that. It's been patched in the past, but that was probably 10 years ago, thereabouts. So you can see some corrosion, some wear on that, so we're going to wire brush all that frame, getting it looking nice. Plastic panel there, going to paint that black. Going to cover that in the black vinyl as well. Also got to make another one of those because we only have one. The advantage of these Nissan Patrol seats, the passenger and the driver's seat are identical, just a mirror image of one another. So when I'm making a new seat cover for the drivers, I can make one for the passenger seat at the exact same time. All I do is flip it upside down and duplicate what I'm cutting out. Didn't want to turn this into a full tutorial on how to redo your seats because those videos just end up way too long. So I just wanted to show you a few tips and tricks along the way, and I just want to show you the finished product. So I want to get into this, put you on the time lapse. If you are interested in learning how to make the patterns and all that, I did do a tutorial a little while ago on a simpler seat. So if you're interested in seeing that, you can click the link somewhere up here, and a lot of the same principles apply. Otherwise, stick around, we'll see what these seats look like. Now on the bench we have the seat base with all the panels separated. Now this is the center piece, or the center insert panel. So that's the only one that's going to be the tartan flannelette material. All these are going to be the synthetic leathers here. When you're working with materials like this, you want to make sure you know which side is meant to be inside and the outside. You can see this, although it doesn't look too bad, that's actually the side that you're not meant to see. As you open it up, you can see everything's a lot sharper and a lot neater. So keep that in mind. Also, as you're sewing in your pattern, you do not want to cut it exactly to size. As you do your stitch lines, whichever way you stitch them, it will actually shrink in the material and you'll end up with a panel smaller than it needs to be. A lot of the time the covers will still go on, they just won't have the as neat a look as you could achieve. So, I want to cut it bigger than what I need. Then we'll start drawing our pattern and we'll cut it down from there. Alright, I've got a couple lines drawn on the fabric and the foam. So doing it this way, it's a little bit complex, probably one of the harder ways to do it. The easiest way would be just to glue it to the foam, draw some lines and stitch straight on top of the fabric. I'm going about it a little harder, but I should end up with a pretty nice result in the end. So if we look close, we can see a faint line I've drawn. This one here ended up exactly on this line here. So I'm just following that. Got a couple marks to remind me where I'm working. When you're drawing lines on patterned material, it's important not just to draw a straight line, but make sure it's straight and follows in line with the pattern itself. Otherwise, when you sew it on, it's going to look terrible. The lines on the foam, they're in place, so I know where to fold the material. So I fold the material and line the line up on the fabric with the line on the foam itself. And when I go to the next one, oh, that's actually upside down, but that's all right. So that'll be sewn in place, and you fold that back to the next line and line that up with the two next lines. So that's the basic principle of that. So I'll throw that under the machine. Alright, so this face panel is done. Got the pocket sewn on the back. You can see it has its seams sewn in. Now on this material, the seams aren't the most noticeable. I'm hoping when it's actually together you notice a bit more, but oh well, it is what it is. And now I'll pull the vinyl out, the black vinyl, put it on the bench, and we're going to start marking out that. So, I've traced, marked, cut out, and prepared everything to go together with these different panels. The next thing to take into account is all these little pockets and attachment points. So this is what I call a listing, or a listing pocket. That's where the metal wires go through. We attach the cover to the cushion itself. Now you also get these little plastic strips that you stitch around the base, and that helps it fasten underneath. So it's easy to forget about these and start attaching, joining the covers together, but it's important that we think ahead and start making these. Now these are usually done with a light fabric like a calico, but there's no reason why you can't use just a offcut of vinyl, as long as it's to the right size. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to cut those pockets, and I'm going to attach these face panels to foam, and once they're attached to foam, then I can start assembling the whole lot. Covers now together. It's looking pretty neat. Now I need to move my focus to the frame itself. You can see it's looking pretty tired. It's a bit of rust and everything. It's been a bit damp, so it's never good for these. Luckily, these seat frames in the Patrols come factory painted, so it's not actually too bad. So I'm going to put this in the vise, hit it with a wire brush, and then I'm going to go over it with this Rust-Oleum 2x Ultra Cover paint primer. Okay, when you're cleaning these, you want to make sure you give it a good check over, because up here I've just found it's cracked from the outside down to one of these mounting positions here. It's pretty common on a seat frame this old to actually have frames. Now the Nissan Patrols aren't usually that bad for it. The Toyota Land Cruisers typically have more issues with this kind of thing, but this one has a nice crack down there, so now's a good opportunity to put it back together. Alright, I'm going to set up the welder, tack that back into place, take this outside and give it a paint. Welded, not the prettiest thing in the world, but there's no longer a crack there. So I'm happy with that. Let's clean her up and paint her. So I've got this cover just loosely laid on the foam itself. Now things actually attached is just resting there. Still going to make some repairs to the foam itself. But here's a sneak peek of what it's going to look like. I reckon it's going to make the inside stand out a little bit. So it's going to do what I'm hoping to do. I'm quite liking the look. The lines aren't 100% perfect, but it's good enough for this build. And that's just a sneak peek for this. I'm not going to be able to finish it in this episode for you guys. There's going to have to be a part 2 to finish this seat. There's quite a bit of work in it, and I haven't started the backrest yet. So I'm going to jump ahead a bit. I'm going to get the backrest going, get that ready going. So in the next episode, you'll see this seat all complete. But for now, here's a teaser that's going to look at. Alright guys, that's going to be it for this episode. It's going to be the part 1 to the custom interior. There's going to be several parts to this series. There's going to be a lot of interior work. So, as far as the custom interior goes to the Patrol, this is part 1. The next part, you'll see the front seat done. Be able to see what that looks like. Later on, there's a lot more interior work to do. We've got roof, doors, floor, a bunch of other little things to do. So, there's a lot to come with the custom interior. So hang around for that, and I'll see you next time on Sam's Project Bench. Thank you for watching.